Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today we will be speaking with a very new IFBB pro who literally just made her pro debut 2 days before we're sitting down to record this at the Battle of Texas, where she placed in the top 10. And she is a registered respiratory therapist who's inspired to support others in sharing experiences and showing love to all with her faith in Christianity and the belief she holds that we are all in this together and nobody is alone. So welcome to the show, Candice Henricks. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing so great. I've been kind of unpacking all my supplies from your show this morning. So it's nice to kind of sit down and take a break and have a little bit of coffee with you and see where this goes.
Oh, of course. I'm so happy for you. This whole weekend looked awesome, and I'm excited to just get into this conversation. Like I was telling you before hitting record, I know it's going to be probably one of the realest ones. So I would love to just start off by asking you if you have a ritual or something you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage.
Oh, man. I just try and think of like every moment that you thought that you couldn't make it to this point, or every hard workout, every meal that you didn't want to eat, or every treat that you saw that you did want to eat. Every single step along that way is all about to pay off as soon as you look those judges in the eye and finally just put your feet to the pavement.
I love that. That's amazing. And so true. Like those thoughts do sometimes like cross my mind, specifically like this year it came up a lot. I was like, oh my God, finally made it here. But
Yes,
anyway,
2020 has definitely been it's been such a hard year for every single person,
Mhm.
and everybody's experiences for 2020 have been completely different. And I think everybody kind of went through a lot, just
Yeah.
emotionally, physically, in so many ways. 2020 has, I feel like, also been a great opportunity to grow as a person. And that's kind of the perspective I tried to take off of it,
Oh
that
yeah.
you gotta grow through the pain. That's the best way to go about it.
I feel like all of us in bodybuilding and competing, or even those who are inspired to do it, have that mentality as well, which supported a lot of us this year and also maybe brought that version of us out this year. So I think it really
Yes.
prepared, people for future challenges. We're becoming even more resilient and just
Yes.
I just celebrated my birthday and I always do a reflection and I was like, oh my gosh, like this year, as crazy and weird as it's been, it's actually been one of the best of my life. And
Yes.
right,
Yes.
like
Oh, happy
so
belated birthday, by the
thank
way.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Turned 24. Um but yeah, it's like crazy when I look back, I'm like, dang, we've been through a lot, but at the same time, like made the most of it and I am making the most of it. And I see so many other people like just there's a lot of internal growth and shedding and also realization. And actually early on in this year, you had opened up about how you had lost the motivation to diet or hit the gym after like a 28-week prep you had done that really left you in an
Yes.
uncomfortable state mentally, and eventually it inspired you to begin flexible dieting for your latest prep for your pro debut. So would
Yes.
you just take us through what you were experiencing after earning your pro card and then how it led you here to where you are now post pro debut?
Yes. So for my when I got my pro card, it had been about 28 to 29 weeks of dieting at that point. And I can't even express to you the amount of mental games that I was going through on a daily basis. I was not mentally okay. I was cheating on my diet all the time, and it would always be like a binge. There would be like, oh, well, I already had one Pop-Tart, so let's have the whole box of Pop-Tarts. And it would just lead you down like such a dark rabbit hole. And then you would feel the guilt, and guilt only makes you more upset with yourself. So you're like, well, I already messed up today. And I know y'all know how the rabbit hole goes. And by the end of that prep, I just was miserable. I didn't even enjoy the fact that like I had won my pro card. I was just so upset with how long it took. And honestly, it really steered me off from ever wanting to compete again until I moved down to Texas with a bunch of friends who we all met on this fitness cruise, and all decided to move to Houston, Texas in exactly a year. So a year had passed by. I got my pro card, and it was about time for us all to move down to Texas. So we did, and I got put around a very positive, influential, uplifting group of people that kind of also helped me get my mind right, and the fact that, you know, you can flexible diet. And then it put me on to the right coach, which is Nick Comodina. He really like it expressed to me how flexible dieting can be a thing, because I was just chicken, rice, and green beans every single day, 3 times a day, never steered from it. And I think that's where the mental games just got so overpowering, until like I finally like realized, oh, I can have this and this, and I can have a little bit of that, but also like still staying in like the healthy realm. My prep this time was words are undescribable how much easier, more like healthy. I never even lost my period, which is like I know like a major thing for a lot of women. The just the whole physical aspect. My cardiovascular strength was the most intense it's ever been, and I suffer from pretty bad asthma, and there's just a whole much more about this prep that was enjoyable, so that when I did go out on stage, I ultimately felt so happy. Like there was just nothing but complete happiness and joy through that experience.
I love that. And I really appreciate you being so open about that, because I think there's a lot of athletes who are ashamed to talk about their experiences with food. And that's personally my bread and butter. I help competitors with their relationship with food and their body and their goals, specifically in prep and in improvement season, so that they can have very fulfilling preps. And so you can step on stage and be really, really proud of yourself and feel good about whatever decisions you make, which goes back to your point about what you think about before you step on stage. And I imagine, now after having such a great prep and being able to step on stage with that joy, and then of course walking away with a really great placing among some top competitors as well, that's really reassuring for the approach that you took or you chose to take that's new. And when you say like you went from chicken, rice, and veg and binging and cheating on your plan to a more flexible approach, I think sometimes that can be difficult for people to accept or transition into.
Yes.
So how did you start doing that? And were there some foods or things that you're like, can I really have this on a prep? Like, can I actually work that? You know what I mean? There's those beliefs.
Yes, absolutely. Well, because I my first prep ever, so I've only done about 4 shows now. My first show, I didn't even know really much about bodybuilding. I kind of just had a coach who like told me this is what you're going to eat, very meal plan, and that's all you're going to eat. I didn't even know what a cheat meal was at the time. So that prep mentally was pretty easy because I didn't know I couldn't eat anything else. And then of course I found out that cheats were a thing. So the second prep came around, and it was so extended and so long that I just broke down so many times. And thankfully this prep come around, I was like, well, what things do I really enjoy? And this prep, some of my favorite meals included like 100 grams of spinach, about 2.5 ounces of chicken. I would have sauteed mushrooms, fat-free cheese, and I would kind of just heat that up to where the spinach is almost like a little bit soft, and it would almost be like this very nice chicken protein salad. Because of there's so much abundance of spinach, it was very filling and satisfying. And that one definitely got me through a lot. I definitely steered away from Halo Top because there was one time where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to eat this whole container, but I put it away and I threw it on the trash can because I was like, absolutely not. There's definitely some temptation here.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because like I think it's important to normalize all foods, and I think if it fits your macros types approaches can help to do that, or flexible dieting approaches can help to do that. But I also know flexible dieting isn't just the cure, right? Because you're still tracking everything, you're weighing
Yes.
things. It's the food is still there, and it's important that we still work through that. But with that said, you explained one of your favorite meals, really delicious salad. I personally love a good chicken salad too, or like with the warm rice on the spinach. It's
Yes,
beautifully
yes.
played.
Oh, I do. That was definitely in it towards the end as well because I started carb loading and I was like, yes, rice is going to go in this.
Yeah, and I love that you merged like the two worlds. You're like, I don't have to necessarily just have like chicken, rice, and veg, but now I can add the fat-free cheese, or I can heat
Yes.
it up in this way, or put a little bit of this dressing if I want it, or whatever it might be. And I feel like giving yourself permission to do that definitely makes things more enjoyable, more freeing. And it makes me wonder if there was anything else you did differently in your approach, maybe with training or with rest days or with free meals or refeeds or diet breaks, anything like that. Since your first experience was more like a bro science approach.
Yes. So this prep, Nick's workouts were probably some of the most intense workouts I've ever done in my life. I
Wow.
had, I think in the beginning, I had about three-hour long leg days. Um, they were very intense, and he's like, Candice, because we decided to do this prep in 10 weeks. It was kind of like a jump on the bandwagon to Gina Scafolio, who's my really really good friend out here, who's also an IFBB pro, and she was going to compete anyways. And she was like, Candice, I think you should compete with me because it would be so much fun. And I was like, Gina, I still just mentally like don't know if I can get onto like having my chicken, rice, and green beans every single day. And she was like, yeah, you don't have to do that. And it was an approach that I had never taken before, and it was scary at first because I'm like, well, there's no way I can really just track everything, right? I'm gonna mess up somehow. I think there was just a lot of like negative self-talk trying to talk me out of it until I finally just jumped on the bandwagon and I was like, you know what? Let's try this out for 6 weeks and see if I can do this thing. And with the intense workouts and the eating came so easy. Honestly, he made it so easy, and it was never like the cardio was never too intense. He started off at like 25 minutes on an incline treadmill, which I was used to doing like 45 minutes on a Stairmaster. So the whole workout, like workouts, all of the cardio, all the eating was just a complete flip side from anything that I had ever experienced. So it was more of like I took it as a challenge and an exciting challenge. And it definitely like sparked something in me that I didn't know that I had really had from the last prep. And that's good because you want to love what you're doing. And I think that last prep really like took that away from me, the love of the sport. And that's what we're here for. You're competing because you love to do this and you're getting some kind of satisfaction out of what you're doing. And for me, I couldn't find it for the longest time until it was almost just so inspired by my friend. And she was like, let's do this for us. Like, do this for you to find a healthy way to get back into something that you know that you love and you care about, and do it in a healthy way for the first time in your life. And it was a challenge that like I finally accepted. And I just it's so crazy to think that 10 weeks has already flown by.
Oh my gosh, seriously. And then you got to step on stage and feel so empowered by it, which is the best feeling ever. And you know, you had done a few preps before you turned pro, but your path to the IFBB was pretty fast. And it's not like you've done tons of shows, but you've taken your time for the shows. And at times that was, like you said, challenging for you. When you then went into this prep and it was so much more freeing, it was so much easier for you, and you had the support of your friend. You said you did 6 weeks. You're like, okay, let's try this for 6 weeks. So at 4 weeks out, is that when you finally decided, okay, I'm going to do this? Or did you already have an idea in your head, like, I'm going to do this show?
I definitely was like, I'm gonna do this, but like, I was so on fire and loving every single thing that I was doing, and it was so amazing to finally have a love for getting those hard workouts in. I was thriving from them. I was looking forward to going into the gym and sweating the entire process because I was from Missouri where it's pretty cold there, and like all of our gyms are AC. So to come down here to Texas and where we like light up and live up with the garages open and it's heat and it's hot and it's a totally different atmosphere and it gets you pumped up and you're around a bunch of other like-minded people at where I train is at Athlete Gym, and they're all about the same age, and everyone's like, you know, just grinding it out together. And you meet people, and they're like, "Hey, I can see that you're like, you know, getting leaner. Are you prepping for a show?" And then you meet new people and you make connections, and everyone starts rooting for you by the end. And it was just so inspiring. So I was almost hooked already by just the people in the gym and the motivation and everyone around me being like, no, you got this.
That's super cool. I think our environment definitely plays a big role in how we feel about ourselves and what we're committing to, and also how we show up. Like, they say like you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. It's like you kind of want to have things to aspire to, but also inspire others along the way, which it sounds like you were able to do. And you've been open about your challenges with comparison to others. And you had mentioned you really took, in a post you had mentioned, you had taken some time to look inwards.
Mhm.
And I was, I have like a two-part question to this, but first of all, like, I was curious if when you're working out there, you said sometimes people will comment like, oh, you're getting leaner, you're getting leaner. Do you ever feel like that changes based on the season you're in or your body shape or size being in a gym like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's definitely so like my gym back home in Missouri, I could tell that people would notice that I was getting leaner, but it was almost more of like a put off to a lot of the people in the gym. Have you ever gone into a gym and you just feel like people kind of stare at you, or it almost makes them feel insecure, and like that is never my goal, because
Mhm.
I get pretty into it. I have my headphones on. I got my workout gear. Like, I don't know if you are the same way as me, but the cuter the workout gear I have, I feel like the better the workout I
Your
have. And
workout gear is so cute.
so thank you so much. And I'm like, feel good, look good, like positive vibes, and it just like thrashes out in the gym. And sometimes I'll go to like a gym and people don't really seem to like that vibe, and I would never want to make other people feel uncomfortable. So finding a home gym is definitely a huge part into like the electricity of your workouts, and finally coming to a gym where like it felt like everybody else is also in the zone and that you can stare at other people too, because I mean, what else do you do on cardio, right? I like to
The
people watch.
mirror
And
deflections.
I people watch while I'm doing my cardio, and I'm just like inspired by like, wow, look at her shoulders, and oh, look at that, and ooh, I bet you I can even improve on that. And it just gets you like this huge tumble rolling that you're like, I can do that too, and hopefully inspire a bunch of people along the way too. It's just all about the positive vibes, and your atmosphere is so much of like the mental process of prep.
Definitely. I can relate to that in some ways. Like the only gym I've been to that's like very bodybuilder-esque. I shouldn't say the only. There was one in New York and then there's one in San Diego. And man, it was so awesome. It's so cool. It's definitely a different vibe. Everyone's like you said, on the same page. And that can be really motivating. I work out at like a commercial gym, and there's a few people who really like, oh my gosh, they look amazing. Look at their shoulders, like you were saying, who I love to just watching inspired by. But I also really do get inspired by just like, the person who's not competing and just going to the gym to,
Yes, every single day that shows up. And those
Yes.
are also like such important stats because, now that I'm done competing, I'm back in that routine too. I'm back on that exact level. Like, I just got to keep showing up because, of course, one of the hardest parts about not having a show in sight is continuing to show up and continuing to try and chase your goals when it's so easy to fall off the bandwagon.
Yeah, and I imagine it's now easier for you too because your process and approach has changed and been so much more empowering for you and not something like you're dreading. And I was hoping you could even expand a little bit on what you've done to establish more happiness within yourself and away from comparison and away from like the self-doubt you said you had been experiencing.
Um, so it got honestly pretty bad. Whenever I first moved down here to Houston, I was going through a pretty tough time financially. A lot of like financial burdens had kind of slowly started to tack up. And the first one started with the fact that I emergently had my appendix removed. I think
Crazy.
that was in September last year. I don't know. I was just working and my stomach started hurting. And out of nowhere, I'm on the floor behind a building next to a trash can calling my boyfriend to come pick me up at work. And
Oh
I
my
couldn't move.
gosh.
It was definitely a scary time. And then I went into the ER and they're like, yeah, so you're going to stay overnight and have your appendix removed in the morning. And I was like, are you sure? Like, you really got to do this because I'm really nervous about this. And I was by myself and like I just moved down to Texas, so I didn't have anybody really to go with
Mhm.
me. Oh, but moral of the story is I got it out, and the insurance did not want to pay for it because it was out of my area of so I was from St. Louis and I was going to school down in Springfield, Missouri. So I guess my insurance didn't really cover it, and that bill was about like $30,000.
Mm.
And so that was like a really hefty, hardy thing that kind of smacked me first. And then I moved down to Texas, and I had just graduated from respiratory therapy school. And then I also realized the, process to get all of my paperwork done started taking a lot more time than I had originally hoped. I had graduated in May, and I wasn't working until about a month and a half ago. So I spent about 3 months basically unemployed. And it was like a very hard time for me because, like, I had been so pumped up. I was like, I'm graduated. I'm moving down to Texas. Like, big things are coming my way. And I'm scrolling on Instagram and I'm seeing all these people who are getting engaged or having a baby or graduated. And all of my, like, graduated class are like taking pictures of themselves working in the hospitals and da 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 da. And I got into this like hopeless comparison of why isn't that me yet? Why aren't I also achieving my dreams? Like, why am I in this turmoil of this waiting season? And it was very hard for me to continue not falling down the rabbit hole of why. So I actually deleted all social media for about three months. And I took a huge time to reflect on what makes Candice happy. Where does Candice need to go to chase her goals? And it was a lot of heavily Bible study based. So I started with Proverbs, and I just kind of worked my way through the Bible and really just solidified my faith, like again, and really helped me build on, you know, we're all chosen on purpose for a purpose. And, it's not really as much as we want things to happen on our time. It's on his time. And it's all according to his plan. And uh, yes, it's frustrating sometimes, but it's also okay to accept the path that you're on, and just kind of listen to him guide you, and he will set you up for the path that you're supposed to take. And little did I know that it kind of twist and turned things into me finding a huge healthier balance with eating and this prep, and really solidified my mental state for work, because there were so many like mental comparisons that I was going through that was bringing me down such a dark area, that I don't think if I had just gotten my job and just started working and just started doing all those things, that I really mentally would have been in the right mind to be taking care of patients, or doing the right thing where I can be more helpful to people and inspire those, because you have to reflect on yourself and really be able to see where you see yourself before you can inspire others. Because if you're not happy with your own life, how could you be inspiring to other people to want to, like, you know do things better for them and help inspire them when you aren't happy with your own living situation?
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. I really appreciate you just sharing all of that. So many beautiful words and golden nuggets in that story. And it sounds like you really took something that was challenging on multiple levels, from the emergency appendix removal to this comparison trap on social media that came from your graduation not immediately leading to a job and having to go through all that paperwork and moving and yet you see that it was all for this purpose of inspiring yourself, facing those demons that needed to be faced so you could come out
Yes.
even stronger, which is super awesome. And there's a few directions I want to go with that. And one of them is really, you started sharing the faith and the exploration of your faith on social media. And did you ever have any concerns about sharing your faith or sharing scripture, or was faith always strong in your life?
um I would not say faith was always strong in my life. Right when I was 17 years old, my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and it left a huge why in my life. And I think like that's something that I struggle with the most, is I always like wanting to be like, well, why did this happen, or what's going to come out of this, all of these questions that you want to have the answers to. And I think it's a control based issue that I faced, because I couldn't control the fact that my mom was getting sick and passing away. So I always wanted to kind of control my environment around me. And it kind of led me down a dark time where I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I just know I wanted to help people, and I found some happiness in that. So I started out, you know, uh, I think the biggest red flag for me was whenever we were around my mom and it was her deathbed and I couldn't even say the Lord's Prayer. And because I just didn't know it. And I think I was just very embarrassed that I couldn't share that moment with my mom as she was passing, that I was like, well, something needs to change. And so that kind of like started my first journey into faith. And I'm like, well, who is God, and what does he want from me? And then I went through another really hard passing. My best friend's brother committed suicide, and also she had several attempts as well. So it was a very dark few years of trying to get through those things, but coming out on top, really like solidifying my faith in Christ helped me release all of those needs to control my environment and realize he's really the one that's in control. And when I could let go of that, my whole world changed. And that ultimately, like, really kind of just paved the way for me changing who I wanted to be as a person, instead of trying to be a control freak and be like, why me? Why pity, pity, pity? And just, oh, it was such a dark time. I just was like, I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to really have happiness, just like, why can't I be happy like everybody else? Or why this? And it was just a very dark pity party until, you know, I finally was able to like get over my own like darkness and be like, I'm not going to be this person. I'm going to be a person who can show others that through the darkness, like, you can come out on top. There are ways to navigate through the darkness together, and you don't have to feel alone, and you don't have to worry about what steps you're going to take, because guess what? Like, God really does have your steps planned for you. And it's okay to not know them. And it's okay to just let it go and let him be in control. And he will guide you. And just that ultimately was such a power in my life that I finally was able to just release and accept. And I think that really started solidifying who I have become as a person.
Wow, that's amazing. I really appreciate how you how you just express the way that these challenges have really developed you into who you are. And I think that, is probably why you're so empathetic and so driven to help other people to know they're not alone because of all these different challenges you've faced or that have been unexpected and come out of your life. And I just think that's really beautiful how you went from this, like you said, this dark pity party, this comparison, this need for control in times where, of course, that would be natural to want control when so much is, out of your control, to then having faith and getting your personal power back while releasing the need to control everything. And you've talked about how faith is so important to you, and it's important to trust and believe in that. You've also spoken about how important it is to make a plan and take action. So,
Yes.
what are some things you've been doing to work through the unexpected challenges you faced? Or any specific examples, like with the debt or with the loss of your mom, or even with transitioning with your competing and finally saying, yes, doing that again? Like, what were the specific action steps?
For me, I feel like tasks, like definitely tasks and journaling were my number one, like, way to express a bunch of feelings that I have. So I started, whenever I deleted social media, I woke up every single morning. I would have my coffee brewed in my coffee pot, and I would get up and I would come to the couch and I would pick, like, I started off with Proverbs, and I would just pick a verse and I would start writing notes on it. And little did I know, like, my entire book started filling up so fast, and I was like, I need something more than this. So I started getting a devotional, and it was more, it was great because it gives you like a small passage that you can read, and it reflects on like a daily way to get through. Here, I could even just pick something simple. I have one right here in front of me. So it says, sometimes a simple gesture of kindness goes further than we can realize. Maybe it's helping someone carry something, speaking life, giving words to a discouraging friend, or offering a warm hello to a stranger. When we slow down long enough to meet a need, no matter how small, we can shine the light of Christ in our own little way. So it's just like a little passage to just kind of remind you and apply something in your daily life, which would be maybe smiling to a stranger, and or helping somebody, with their groceries. It's just a very positive way to just kind of apply something on a daily to the daily. And it really got me to refocus on what matters most in life, which definitely wasn't comparing my life to other people's, because everybody has their own path that they're going to be on. And it's okay to be on a totally different path. And ultimately, I think with like journaling and expressing my feelings every morning, I was able to really cultivate a routine, which I think I thrive the best in, is routine, 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 routine. And I found a lot of power and strength in routine.
Wow, that's awesome. I think a lot of us can say that we thrive off of routine for sure, but it's one thing to know you thrive off routine, it's another thing to find a routine that you thrive off of, right? Like one that actually gets you going in the morning, actually helps you live with intention. And it sounds like you've really been able to develop that and you took time away from most people's norms of social media and going to social media to learn or to talk or to express, which you do a lot of now, which is awesome. But you took that time away in order to come back even stronger for yourself and committing to these things in your daily life, which is so beautiful. And part of that, challenge for you, you had mentioned was this unexpected wait time of becoming a respiratory therapist after graduating. And that brought up some comparison. It brought up like those why me's, but ultimately like letting go allowed you to then have the timing come with perfect timing, as a lot of other things that you've brought up. So what was your journey to this career path like, and what was it inspired by? And then, you know, we'll talk about your transition into the career itself.
Yeah, so back whenever my mom got sick, I was like, I want to be a nurse. I want to help my mom, so I can take care of her. And that's what I was ultimately inspired by. And I
Mhm.
went to nursing school and got 3/4 through my bachelor's degree of nursing. And I was so miserable. I just couldn't handle the amount of like nurses. I give them props. Like they are such a beast. I give so much props to them. I just don't think I can do what they do. It
Mhm.
was just so much like, too much energy, too much oh, don't even get me started on the amount of times you have to kind of clean someone and bathe someone, and I just don't do poop. We'll just keep it as simple as that. And so I kind of was like, well, what else can I do in the healthcare field that is going to benefit me in a way that I can still help people, um, but not nursing? And I just stumbled onto respiratory therapy. And I was like, I'm not even really sure what this is too much. And basically, they're kind of like mini pulmonologists. They they're pretty undervalued. They're super smart. The conversations that I've had with some respiratory therapists are so inspiring, but they basically take care of the hearts and the lungs. Majority of, so we'll do the breathing treatments. We do like invasive procedures like bronchoscopies. We will intubate, extubate, manage ventilators, which has come into handy for COVID. Um, but it's just like a very math based career, and I fell in love with it. And that's why I moved to Springfield, Missouri, which was 3 hours from home with my boyfriend. He was like, babe, we're packing up and we're going to Springfield. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So we packed up our things and moved to Springfield. I got into respiratory therapy school. It was like a pretty fast transition. I graduated in a year, and I was so excited to finally be like, oh my gosh, let's do it. I've waited for this moment for my whole life. My dad's like, finally, you get to get off your bills, and I get to like, bye bye, honey, move out, see you later. I'm like, yes, dad. So excited. And then it was a huge waiting game, which was something I just had never mentally faced before, because all the steps were there. It would be almost like comparing it to getting ready to step on stage, but they're making you stand there. You can't do anything. You can't go on yet. And you just have to wait and wait and wait. And it was just such a hard time for me because I was like, well, I just don't understand why I'm waiting. What is going on? What is this wait for? But ultimately, it gave me a lot of time to really mentally prepare myself for the challenges that I was going to face ahead, which was getting my finances really together, um, somehow coming into meeting this new coach, and really deciding that I want bigger things in my life, as well as not just seeking happiness in a career, but also seeking happiness and motivating others in, whether they're unemployed or whatever they're going through with COVID. Because a lot of people lost their jobs. Like, a lot of people are going through such hard times right now. And I feel for them. I really do. And I think just ultimately, my biggest goal is to just let other people know that they're not alone in their struggles and that they can make it through just about anything. The mind is so powerful. You sometimes you just need that one person that's going to be there and be like, I understand what you're going through, and you are going to come out on top. You are going to make it through this. And just that little whisper in your ear sometimes is just enough to finally start it to turn into a louder whisper in your ear, into changing it and cultivating it, into changing it to where you can speak enough for yourself and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. And then it just starts this like huge fire in your soul that, you are going to come out on top. I saw that person do it. I can do it too. And hey, they have my back, that when I feel like times are a little bit tough, I know that they'll help me get through.
Wow, that's awesome. I love how it went from, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and this is really hard. And oh my gosh, this sucks, to like, okay, it's gonna happen eventually. I'm gonna get there. It's gonna be okay. And you had so many people supporting you. You had your boyfriend, you had your dad cheering you on. And of course, this new environment you immersed yourself into, although you weren't where you wanted to be, you were surrounded by people you wanted to be surrounded by. And eventually you got your license, you got the word
Yes.
that you can go and do this. So how did you transition into 12-hour shifts from from not working, and then work this into like your prep schedule too?
Yes, that was quite insane. I like to put a lot of eggs in my basket, per se. I switched to 12 hours, and so I have a big cooler that I take to work every single day, and I work at the Texas Medical Center, so we have to take a train to get onto site. So it's a lot of walking, which is super helpful in the fact that I had to have 10K steps plus cardio. So I tried to work this out for my benefit, honestly, but I would pack my meals the night before. So most days consisted of me waking up at right around 4:30 in the morning to make my breakfast. And then I would go from my breakfast straight to the gym to do my cardio in the morning, and then straight from the gym to work, and then straight from work back to the gym to do my workouts. Um, it was the first time I've also been in a prep where I wasn't allowed more than one coffee. And
Oh,
so coffee was definitely the thing that thrived my last prep, but it also was so abused
yeah.
last prep. So this was the first time I was healthily being able to like just use my actual body's real nutrients for energy. And I think that mentally also really helped me this prep as well. But it was mostly just the everyone in the department always like makes little jokes at me. They're like, "You sure you don't want to eat this, Candice?" And I'm like, "Y'all, no, I don't." And it was just me and my little lunch bag every single day.
That's awesome. I think it's like such a big thing, especially in the medical world where people are running on 12-hour shifts. And I know the clients I've worked with have struggled with this as well, where it's part of like that culture is almost like eat what the patient's family brought in or eat what.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, you're always like, I don't think it's a problem to always be surrounded by that. Like you said, you have your goals, you have your, you have your mindset driven into what you want to achieve, and you've been able to now develop even more flexibility too. But it can be a struggle for some. And you really just went full on into these 12-hour shifts. Not only did you go full on into these 12-hour shifts, but you did it. And by the way, I will be asking more about like the caffeine and the peaking protocols and all that good stuff with your prep, but I want to know a little bit more about this transition because you did jump into it amidst a pandemic. So,
Yes.
what do you feel like the demands were different than they will be, maybe in 2 years, 1 year, whatever it might be, or have they changed? Like, what's it been like for you?
So COVID at the hospital has been, I would say pretty low key when I first started. But I'm not sure if you're aware, there are quite a bit of spikes kind of circulating around, and it's definitely filling up the hospitals quite a bit. Even my orientator got sick with COVID during this entire prep. He got sick about 2 weeks ago. So it was definitely a little nerve wracking thinking there was a possibility that I would be getting sick during this prep. So um, I also tried to remember that my priorities are a lot different this prep than other preps. And it was, instead of putting bodybuilding first in my life, it was definitely more of like I tried to think of it as a hobby this time around. And I think it helped me enjoy the process a lot more too. And patient care is always going to come first. So the transition, it was a little rough at first because I went from completely unemployed to full time going into 12 hours. But same thing. It's finding a routine that works for you. And my routine always consisted of prepping my meals the night before, waking up, having my decaf coffee with zero artificial sweeteners. And I love my decaf coffee. And then I
Me
would go to the
too.
gym.
You make fun of me for it. I think it's
I know. And I'm like, well, you know what? People abuse caffeine. I was definitely one of them. I was having probably around 900 milligrams of caffeine.
Oh my God, I would die. Like I would
I
genuinely not be
know.
able to handle.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous. I was wondering why I was so agitated, aggravated, and it was playing a huge part into honestly my relationship with my boyfriend.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, we kind of went through some struggles when we first moved here, and we weren't figuring out why I was so agitated all the time. And it was like another reason why I kind of needed to self-reflect and work on things about me. I was like, I just don't know why I'm feeling this way. And a lot of it had to do with caffeine. I was having such abundance of caffeine that I was always angry and little things that would irritate me. And I'm like, I'm a very pretty easygoing person, I like to think. But if I was in the car and somebody like pulled out in front of me really fast, I'd be like angry with them. And I'm just not that kind of a person. I'm pretty like low maintenance and easygoing. And I pulled all of my caffeine when I started prep. And he was like, you can have 1 cup of coffee. That's it. And within a week, my entire attitude towards the world had changed drastically. It was like a night and day difference. And I was like in disbelief. I was like, there is no way caffeine has this much of a power over me. There's no way. And I was shocked. And then thankfully, I guess I kind of came to the terms with letting my boyfriend tell me he told me so.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. So, okay, this past prep, I've been having more caffeine than in the past. Like I used to be like super, super sensitive to it, and then not as much. And I became aware of that, and I was like, okay, I need to chill. Which, I'm grateful for. But also, my body couldn't handle that much. But I'm curious, like, not only did you go from having 900 milligrams to like a cup of coffee's worth, so maybe 200, did you have any like withdrawal symptoms or anything where you're like headaches or anything like that?
It wasn't too bad at first, honestly. It was so much more of a come down than like anything. I just noticed like I was coming down almost of like being so agitated to not feeling that way. It was almost like a huge weight had come off of my shoulders. And I was like, there's no way it's caffeine. I was in such disbelief because I was waking up every single day. I would have literally probably 4 cups of coffee. And it's just a thing in the hospital. Like we have endless cups of coffee. Everybody grabs a coffee after every rotation. Like it's just in the lifestyle. And, they give us discounted coffees because we're like, working in the hospital. So it's just so easy and accessible. And to go from just so much caffeine, and then I would have my 4 cups of coffee, then I would go into work and I would have a bang with just another 300 milligrams of coffee, and then I would go work out and I would have a huge pre-workout scoop, like a full scoop of pre-workout.
Dang.
And I misused caffeine. Ugh, I can't even believe it still. I'm like in disbelief. I was like so embarrassed at how much that I was having that I was like a cuckoo lady.
Hmm. That's tough. That's tough to like face, but also it's really nice that you have been through that because now you know like that you can thrive without it too. And you mentioned there were a few other things that you had done, like you also cut out your artificials, you cut out your pre-workout. So was this part of improving for your prep, or was it just in general now you don't do any of that?
Ooh, that's a good question because now, that prep is over, it's like, what do I go back to? Um, I I don't think I'm gonna cut out all artificials completely. I have switched to the stevia instead of using like the, 0 calorie packets just because they have other like pretty unnatural um, you know, contaminants in there. But overall, I think I'm going to try to really stay to my 200 milligrams of caffeine because it's made such a positive impact in my life that I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of. And I just can't harp enough that if you feel like you're very agitated, like look at your caffeine intake. Really like take a look and see how much caffeine you're having. And it played such a big part into my life. Like I don't want to go back to that. I'm leading such a healthy, more like abundant source of natural caffeine from just the good foods that I'm eating that I just don't need it anymore.
Love that. Like you're finding ways to get energy from the nourishment you're providing your body.
Yes.
That's really awesome. And what a nice shift to know that you can do that and you don't have to rely on some external source to bring that to you as well. Like that's really a satisfying feeling. And now I'm curious, like you had changed some of your approaches to like your nutrition, you've changed some of your approach to like caffeine, and a lot of girls just, we rely on caffeine or like, oh, let's use
Yes.
it and abuse it, like you said. I love that you took responsibility and addressed it for your relationship, for yourself, for your boyfriend, for just your overall function in life. But did you do anything different when it came to like your peaking protocol working with a new coach? Or was there anything specific you focused on after your feedback from earning your pro card? Or did you guys just kind of
Oh, I'm
maybe
still
go?
waiting. I just emailed them this morning, so we will see the feedback on that
Nice.
hopefully by the end of the day.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but for peak week, I don't think I've ever drank so much water in my life. I had about two and a quarter gallons of water, which I normally think I drank. I tried to drink a gallon of water every single day for my last prep, which I was not very good at doing.
Mhm.
But this prep, I was very religious about it. I had my gallon water jug that I took to work every single day, and I had it like little like glitzed up with glitter on it, and everyone made fun of me for it, but it's super funny and it kept me motivated to drink my water. But I was really good about my water this prep. And he like water loads you the days up until the show, and then it's just sips of water on show day, which was so comforting knowing that I didn't have to chug a bunch of water. and worry about going to the restroom while I had my tan on. The show day itself was so relaxed. It was honestly probably one of the most well organized, quick, productive shows that I've ever been to. And that itself was very relaxing as well.
That's
Peak week
awesome.
protocols, like I was running also by the end, which was kind of hard on the arches of my feet. But it was definitely a mental game of, we progressively worked up from 25 minutes to an hour's worth of cardio. And right at peak week, he cut it, I think, he cut it about 3 days before to 30 minutes. So I was just going into work, like waking up, doing my 30 minutes of cardio, and then I would go into work. So it was a pretty coasty, breezy peak week, and it was quick, and I still can't believe it's already over.
I know. I just entered peak week, so I'm like, oh, I'm
Girl,
so excited, but
yes,
it
just
does
day by
fly
day,
by.
day by
Yeah.
day.
So true. It's nice to hear other people's like strategies because I think sometimes we get flooded with like, this is wrong, this is right, this is what you should do. Meanwhile, also being preached to that it's individual and it's unique. It's like,
Yes,
oh, it's so
yes,
annoying. So I appreciate you being willing to share like your approach confidently and letting us know like what you've done, not just now, but in the past too. Now, when you stepped on stage, you got top 10 at this awesome show. I know it was a stress-free day for you, which is so cool. What did that feel like for you this past weekend? Like, how was that?
I walked in to see some of these pros, and I just looked up and I saw Angelica, and like tears almost just kind of came to my eyes, and I was just in disbelief that, oh my gosh, like I'm in the presence of Olympians right now. I was like, I am so honored, so starstruck, so inspired, and I was in disbelief, and I was looking at all these women around me, and I was like, I can't believe we're all here about to step onto the same stage. And it was just an amazing experience. There was, I'm trying to think of who was standing in front of me, but all the girls were like dancing, and like, we were just getting it backstage, all staying like super pumped. And it was just a completely different atmosphere than, any amateur show that I've ever been to. Is like all the girls are back there pumping up, not talking to each other, staying like in their own zone. And it was just so much more positive and uplifting. And I got to meet Hannah Franz, and we got a picture together. I got a picture with Angelica. There was just so many pros, and it was just so inspiring. And I was just trying so hard to just live in the moment. I was like, whatever you place, just know that you are with some of the top people that you watch on Instagram, that I have been just scrolling and just mesmerized by for months now. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm there. And I was like, ah, I was just so excited. I was just so excited overall.
That is so cool. I love how you like released any expectations. You went in, you were like, okay, this is amazing and this is a great experience. And you were just present in the moment. Did anything surprise you backstage or went through your pro debut?
Oh man, how quick it was. It was so quick, honestly. I remember every show, like there's always a morning and a night show. And for my last prep, I came in drier the second day than the first day, which is always a bummer. But my last show, I did really well. Got the pro card, and it was a learning experience that whenever I compete again, I need to watch my water intake and make sure I come in dry the first day, because that's usually when they do all the judging. So for this show, I was like dry, I was ready, I was there, and like just living in the moment. All the girls were just pumping up, and we had music going backstage. All the girls were dancing together and taking pictures, and it was just so positive. And looking back, I looked at one of the other pros and I was like, I'm just trying to live in this moment right now. And she was like, girl, don't you worry about a thing. And immediately grabs my hand and just starts dancing with me backstage. And it was just so inspiring, and everyone was so happy. And it was almost like I was in shock that, like, you would think because they're so professional, like, level, that they would be more in their, like, heads, in their zone, like, ready to bash it out. But it was more of a community than I ever expected it to be. Everybody rooting for each other. And it was just something I had never experienced or seen. You would think that, you know, it wouldn't be like that, that people would be so competitive, but everyone was so supportive. And it was just something I had never seen before.
I love that. I think that is so amazing and something that can only really be experienced when experienced, right? It's like that full present moment awareness. And I've had some amazing experiences as an amateur, but I've heard various stories, from pros on the show, but also just in conversation, that it is different. It's a different energy. But I also want to go back to when you went to your first national show, you had no expectations, and yet you walked away with your pro card. So when you realized you won your pro card and you had that IFBB pro title, you said earlier that you didn't really feel that much joy for it. Has
Mm-hmm.
that changed now? Like, now that you've done your pro debut, you've found this new path, like, how are you feel? Like, what's your energy towards this title of IFBB pro?
It's nice because the fact that I kind of go back to the fact that where I'm not putting bodybuilding as such a priority, as the number one top tier thing that makes me happy in life, I was able to accept, other avenues of happiness, which, the fact that I put so much pressure on bodybuilding that last prep, I was so laser focused. I was like, 28 weeks. I got to keep pushing. There's only one way out of this, and it's going to be with me competing this show. Like, I have to get my pro card. I have to do this. And by the time they finally announced my name, like, I was like, okay, well, I did it. So now what? And it wasn't like a joy that I had felt. I was like assuming that I would have been more like, you did it, like, yes. But it was more of like a, I'm so hungry, I want to eat everything in sight, I don't even care anymore. And it was such an unhealthy binge eating adventure after that show that I was like, I never want to compete again. To finally stepping on stage, living in the moment with these girls, and not wanting it to end. I was like, wow, I want to keep living in this moment. I can be healthy, be inspiring, be a respiratory therapist, be all of these things that I want to be, and live a healthy lifestyle. It's not just competing anymore. It's mentally being strong, physically being strong, and having like an overall healthy body for the first time in my life.
Amazing. I love that so much. That's really cool. Like, you've detached from the preconceived identities or notions or requirements to now being able to say, like, okay, this is what I want to get out of this sport, or this is what I'm committed to getting from it. And I just think that's a really cool evolution and a great way of, showing people it is possible to do that and come out on the other side. You don't have to be stuck to that identity this whole time. So with everything you've shared, I mean, there's been so many incredible insights, and your experiences have not only inspired me from, competing perspective, but also from
Oh,
life as well. Seriously, I think you're
you're
so
so
real.
sweet.
No, for real. You're very genuine, you're open, and that's always so appreciated. And I would love if you could leave us with your best advice for someone who's never competed before but would like to, and then someone who is on their road to pro.
Ooh, okay. So if you've never competed before, I would definitely say, um, is this your passion? Like, is this something that is your avenue for bodybuilding, a way to make you more physically toned, or are you doing this because you want to have like a healthier lifestyle? Bodybuilding is a beast of its own, and it has so many benefits to it. It really does mentally make you stronger and push you to avenues that you never thought would have expected because of the mental games that you're going to go through. Just find a good support system, whether that's within yourself or somebody else that can also help you through it. Know that at the end of the day, just take it day by day, meal by meal, cardio session by cardio session, and just keep ticking down the weeks and set a goal in sight and just have a plan. Like, you can do anything you set your mind to. A mind is such a powerful thing. And for those that are almost like on their way to pro, just keep your vision in mind of where you want to be. You need to always remember that you're competing against your last best self. You're not competing against these other pros or about to be competing against these other people. It's you versus you. And at the end of the day, if you can remember that you're coming out on top just a little bit better than you were, whether that's even mentally, physically, more healthy, then you're doing it right. You're in the right direction. And just having so much passion for this sport because of the amazing benefits that it brings you, just have a community, have a good support system, and just take it day by day, my friend.
I love that. That's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing not just your best advice, but also just everything on this show. That was really, really cool and special for me. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who want to know more and who want to connect with you and probably share their own similar experiences. So, can you let everyone know where they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the process of starting my YouTube. It's been a little bit of a longer journey also that's been in sight because my finances are withholding me from getting a computer. And that's just my only thing that I need to finish up, getting a computer so that I can start my YouTube. But I will have a YouTube in the future. But you can reach out to me on either Facebook or Instagram. My Instagram handle is CAN_DICE_IFBB Pro. I am very frequently on my messenger. I'm always here to listen to anybody's like, hey, I'm going through this. What do you suggest? Or I tried this food item, or what do you suggest for food cravings? Or I'm always here and I'm always ready to listen. And I just hope that if there's anything to take away, just knowing that you have another person you can come to share anything that you're going through. And I mean anything, whether it's questions about a dark time that you're going through, whether it's food or prepping or respiratory therapy or whatever you're going through. I just hope you know that you're not alone and that you have a friend, me, to listen to you and be there for you and encourage you through anything that you're going through. Those are pretty much my two avenues until I create my YouTube.
Oh, I love that so much. Seriously, that is awesome. And I'll make sure that I put the Instagram link there for sure and any way to connect with you as well. So if you get your YouTube up in the next like month or so, I'll definitely add that link to the show notes page, which is always on celestial.fit/podcast. And you guys listening, Candice's episode will have her own category section. And of course, if you're listening day of, it's at the very top. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down, find her name in that section. It's alphabetical. And then you'll be able to see all the show notes, all the links to connect, and episode timestamps so you can specifically revisit some of your favorite parts of the show, which I'm so grateful to have amazing women who listen to the show who produce these amazing episode notes for us so that you guys can do that. So I'd love your feedback on those as well. And thank you guys so much for listening every week, sharing, subscribing, reviewing. It means so much to me. And some of the topics we discussed on this call were challenging, but they're so real. And if you're struggling at all with your relationship with food or the post-show blues, I have 2 free resources on that on my website. One is a free food series and one is a free post-show personal development program. that you're more than welcome to go to, and I'll put the links for that in the episode notes as well. So Candice, thank you so much again for your time and for sharing everything that you did. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
You too, of course. And I hope that everybody listening and you, of course, have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.